Hi, this is Friday, the 4th of February. This is the Democratic Alliance Labour Report. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this to your friends, colleagues, business associates. I've got some interesting things to say. I'm going to talk about the suspended commissioner of the UIF, who's now back at work. I'm going to be talking about the problems that we've seen with government, with the cadre deployment. I'm going to be talking about a whole host of issues such as the state of the nation. I'm going to talk about a wonderful book I've just read called Entrepreneurship. And of course, I must talk about the other issues in our labour law, such as the hollowing out of Denel. So thank you for tuning in once again. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance in Parliament. And today, Friday, the 4th of February 2022, we are all building up for the State of the Nation address. This has been an interesting period in our labour law, and indeed for many of the legal shenanigans that you're seeing, we've seen part 2 of the Zondo Commission handed in. It's unbelievable. All the well-known characters, all the well-known politicians have all been fingered. None of them have been prosecuted. I don't think we can afford the prosecution. I don't think we have the manpower to prosecute. So we're going to see this going on for years. If they try and prosecute everyone, I think it'll take a decade. I'm not sure if we've got the time, the energy, the money. I don't think so. What is interesting is that we had the commissioner of the Unemployment Insurance Fund, you might recall, during the height of the lockdown, we had the Unemployment Insurance Fund trying to distribute some TERS money, which was the emergency funding for employees who were without work. Many of the employees didn't get paid. Some still haven't got paid. We've had billions missing. After a lot of pushing and squeezing, the Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, was forced to suspend the head of the Unemployment Insurance Fund, the UIF. That was about 13 months ago. The man probably earns about 1.5 to 2 million rand a year. I don't know the exact figure. But he's been for 13 months on suspension, on full pay, probably got his increase, probably got his bonus, I don't know. And they said they were investigating him. They were looking to see what he had done wrong. Well, of course, what he had really done, one is the whole department had failed, absolutely dismally failed. They didn't look there, they were looking to see if he got any money in his pocket, if he somehow was able to distribute money to himself. Apparently that's not to be. I don't know who did the investigation. They don't want to share that with us. They also don't want to tell us how much that investigation cost, because you can imagine that the Department of Employment and Labour now is very short of money. They're still not paying the full amount to the CCMA, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, who can't even afford to run labour disputes like they used to run it. It used to be the crown jewel in the Department of Employment and Labour, and they don't have enough money anymore. You still can't walk in. You have to go online to book a case. I mean, it's shocking, but they could afford to pay the commissioner of the UIF his full salary for 13 months. They could afford to pay an investigator. Who knows if it cost 1 million, if it cost 2 million. You know, if it cost 10 million, well, then we might be talking about serious money, but it's taxpayers' money, so don't worry about it. The Democratic Alliance has raised this issue. We're going to keep raising it. We're going to keep attacking the Minister of Employment and Labour. The Democratic Alliance is not satisfied with how things are going. And then, of course, there's the ongoing jab debate, whether you must make it mandatory or mustn't. The Democratic Alliance has clearly come out and said that we would support the mandate in certain circumstances. It would have to be done in very circumspect places. In other words, after a proper consultation, after taking into account the individual's objections, after taking into account the operational requirements of the business, taking into account whether you can have any alternative route instead of forcing someone to get vaccinated. All that has to be taken into account. And the Democratic Alliance has said, let's look at each individual circumstance before we come across with some sort of across-the-board mandate. Well, obviously, we've seen two cases already come out of the CCMA. Both of them have said that the dismissal of the individual who refused to be vaccinated was fair, but they looked at the circumstances of that individual business. They looked at the circumstances of the person. And taking into account all of that, they ruled that the dismissal was fair. Well, last week, the matter came up at the Labour Court. It was referred by Solidarity, the trade union, to attack that. And of course, they referred it on an urgent basis. Well, the court turned it down not because they are supporting anyone. The court hasn't thought about a mandatory vaccination as yet. All they have thought about is the fact that this wasn't urgent and that it's got to wait its turn. They can't jump the queue to get into the court. So we can't read anything from the Labour Court judgment as yet. The jury is still out. I don't think any court can have a ruling saying across the board we're going to allow mandatory vaccination. I don't think they can. They're going to have to look at each specific business and look at how the consultation process unfolded and look at how the individuals tackled the problem. For instance, if you find an alternative route that you can get someone to work at home or get someone to work without being in touch with other staff, all those have to be taken into account. Also, you have to take into account the individual's objections. It might be religious, it might be medical, it might be a situation of the integrity. So all of that has to be taken into account. You must take into account the business itself, and then, only then, can you make it mandatory. And that's where the Democratic Alliance is coming down on that. It's not supporting a general blanket mandatory issue. I just want to turn quickly to the State of the Nation address, the SONA. Well, for the last 12 years, as far as I can remember, it's been incredibly boring. We keep hearing platitudes, promises. We're going to see the same this year. But this year, unfortunately, the promises are going to be looked at with a jaundiced eye. It's going to be a bit like Alice in Wonderland. We're going to hear these promises and we're going to all go, yeah, again. And unfortunately, that yeah, again is going to be absolutely true. The state is bankrupt. They don't have money to promise smart cities, bullet trains, all that nonsense, absolute sheer nonsense, is going to come out of the mouth of the president again. And we're going to all look at it, scratch our head and say, where am I living? What is this all about? How can you have bullet trains? I don't know if you all recall that this was 2 State of the Nations ago, when in fact the railways aren't working at all. I mean, it's bizarre. The smart cities, when millions of people don't even have houses, how can we have smart cities? The whole thing doesn't make sense. So yes, we are heading on Thursday, the 10th of February, 2022, to the State of the Nation. But tune in for a bit of fun, have a smile and have a drink, because that's all it's going to be worth. In the Labour field, well, we've seen that the department can't actually function properly. So for the president to say, I'm going to spend here, there and everywhere, it can't be true. It can't be true if you can't give the CCMA enough money to hear labour disputes, which is the cornerstone of what President Mandela had promised the country so many years ago. It doesn't make sense. Going on to another issue, the matriculants. We had a whole cohort in 2019, all matriculating, all going into the job market. Well, 75% of them are not going to get jobs. A little group are going to do tertiary education, but even after they've done the tertiary education, they're not going to find jobs. They're not doing maths and science, and we're seeing that's at an all-time low. What are we doing? Why doesn't our Department of Labour speak to the Department of Education and in turn speak to the presidency and say, let's get this going. Let's follow the German route of at least a dual education system so that we can put out plumbers, electricians, bricklayers, tilers, you name it. They're the people that are going to get jobs. They're the people that can start small businesses. I had a great opportunity this last week in reading a book on entrepreneurship by a fellow by the name of Steve Reed. I was actually at school with Steve Reed. He's put together a small book on encouraging people to go to colleges, to do the practical work and to become entrepreneurs. All you need is 1 million of those people. They'll employ 5 people each, and we've solved half our unemployment problem. So well done to Steve. Thank you for listening to me again. It's Michael Bagram from the Democratic Alliance, Labour spokesperson. It's the 4th of February 2022. I really appreciate it.